Good evening, family, friends, and supporters of the Civic Orchestra of Jacksonville. We have made it. 2021, here we come. Looking forward to a new year. We are all having some lovely champers of one kind or another. I have a beautiful Louis Jadot Rosé in a lovely Winterthur glass. So I'm getting very into the fact that this year is almost over and the next year is coming. So for this evening's podcast, we're going to be bringing you a number of musical pieces from Strauss, who is often associated with New Year's Eve celebrations, and you're going to learn all about why. The concerts that you're going to see, at least a couple of them, are going to be a little different because we did these performances at a place in Jacksonville called Intuition Ale, which is a brew house. And the orchestra is sitting in the brewery area in front of the giant fermenters, kind of spread out all along the floor. It was a very interesting layout. The sound is a little echoey, but you'll get the idea. The audience was great. And it was special for a couple of other reasons too. One, it was my actual first performance with the group. But Molly's going to tell us a little bit about something else that was going on during that performance. Molly?
Yeah, so this performance was really great because it was one of our opportunities to give back to the community. Each year, we dedicate a concert to a nonprofit organization and raise funds for them. So that concert in February 2018, we dedicated to raising money for Canines for Warriors. So that was really a wonderful partnership we were able to do. And like you said, Cindy, it was so fun to be in the tap, or I guess the brew room of Intuition. I just remember one of the most distinct memories I have of that concert is smelling hops while I was playing. You know, it's a different smell from a usual recital hall, but it was really, really quite different and fun. So the first piece we're going to take a look at is Wine, Women, and Song by Johann Strauss Jr. from that concert.
Yeah, so the music of New Year's is often associated with Johann Strauss Jr. There's always a joke about the March King was John Philip Sousa, but the Waltz King was definitely Johann Strauss Jr. He wrote myriads and myriads of waltzes. Now, the thing about his waltzes were that they were to be danced to or they were to be listened to. And traditionally, we have come to celebrate New Year's sort of in the Viennese tradition. This is something that popularized in Vienna, Austria, which is certainly I guess you'd say a culture from which the waltz, that kind of dancing comes. And the concerts that were given by the Vienna Philharmonic starting in about 1939 and have continued to this day have always involved this idea of the waltzes by Strauss. And it's certainly taken off. Any of you have ever heard of André Rieu, who does those types of concerts now with everyone in ball gowns, and they play a lot of that music, very similar to this. But it's become a tradition for New Year's to play both the waltzes and the polkas of Strauss, and then some of other pieces he wrote that we'll get to later. So this wonderful concert we did at Intuition Ale, yes, and I remember the fragrance, we'll say, of the brewery as we played. The one that we performed, the one we'll listen to, is called Wine, Women, and Song. And although they do not do wine at Intuition, it just seemed to fit the theme of a festive event, because it was definitely festive that night for the concert. So the waltzes are known for setting the different themes. There's usually not just one. There can be up to, within a waltz, there can be up to, I would say, 6 or 7 different waltz themes. And then at the end, all little snippets, they have what we call a coda. And this is like the finishing up music. And when you get to the coda, you'll get just a few little snippets of all those themes. They'll come in, play those few measures of it. So we go that, oh, I remember that music at the beginning. And all the while, I'm so sorry, I have a little visitor here. All the while, we can be remembering all these beautiful movements that we had. So I think if you can take your mind back to maybe 100 years or so ago, it's almost midnight and we're all swirling and dancing. Or when you watch the video, you can take yourself to Intuition Ale and go, wow, that looks like a great time. So I say let's jump to Wine, Women, and Song by Johann Strauss Jr.
Oh, wow. Well, that was such a great piece. And I know we're going to listen to the Champagne Polka next. Marguerite, can you explain the difference between a waltz and a polka?
Yes, I can. Um, believe it or not, the difference is one beat. A polka is generally in 2 pulses, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and a waltz is in 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. For whatever reason, dancing is often in that 3 pulse. However, marches and polkas are in that 2 pulse. And little known fact that Jean-Philippe Sousa, our American march king, most of his marches actually started out as waltzes. And his wife told him, you know, I think those would work better in 2 as marches. And he rewrote a bunch of them. And now we have all those very famous marches that we hear on another holiday, which I think I sense another podcast coming, 4th of July. But a polka is generally a very fast kind of dance step. And as I say, it's in 2 pulses rather than 3. And this particular polka, the Champagne Polka, is known, very frequently played on New Year's Eve. It could be played in other venues, but certainly it's played on New Year's Eve because there's some audience participation. And there's a very, very obvious point in the music where if the participants or the listeners or the dancers sort of reach in and kind of pull their finger out of their mouth really quickly, it can sound a lot like the opening of a champagne bottle. And if you're really interested in trying that, I would say practice, you know, listen to a lot of champagne bottles, you know, listen to them, practice, listen, and then try. Cindy, that's really nice of you to sort of, you know, do one for the team here. But definitely practice, you know, does this really sound like, quite like the sound of the champagne opening? But the music is fun. The music is festive. It's kind of quick. It doesn't quite have the grace, I guess you'd say, of a waltz, because a waltz, we can see gowns and people kind of moving. And it's a little bit more of a galloping kind of feeling. So I say we should listen to the Champagne Polka, and I think you'll enjoy how our audience at Intuition Ale participated. Now I can say they didn't have champagne. They may have had some other beverages before, but they wholeheartedly, they put their hearts into helping out with the Champagne Polka by Johann Strauss Jr.
That was great. And, I have to tell you, it really brings me back because being Polish, my dad was a great dancer. The problem was he never taught me to dance because when I would dance with my dad, all you had to do was hold on tight and he spun you around and he put you wherever he wanted to put you. So I really never learned to polka. I just learned to hold on to dad for dear life. So that was a great remembrance for me. Thank you.
In May of 2017, our last concert of our inaugural season, we played a fabulous Strauss piece, Die Fledermaus. And I think all the musicians really loved it and just really enjoyed it so much. But why is this piece included in a holiday repertoire?
I would say because, well, for one thing, it's written by our good pal Johann Strauss Jr. Again, it's actually or an operetta. Often people are asked, what's the difference between an opera and operetta? Operetta, as you might suspect because of the suffix etta, it means it's a small opera or it's a lighter kind of opera. In opera, whether it's the dialogue between characters or the songs or arias as they're called, generally they are sung. Whereas in operetta, the conversation would be spoken and then they would have songs and things in between, arias or that sort of thing. But the action, I guess you'd say, is forwarded through spoken word. And this particular operetta, if you ever get the chance to see it, please see it because it is hysterically funny. There are many funny scenes, but there are many party scenes in it. And I believe that it's the party scenes that are in the operetta that have made this music, not only because it's fun, and of course there's a waltz in it, but it's that sort of party scene, that party atmosphere, and the fact that it's uproariously funny and it was terribly popular. So what we played was the overture. And this overture is very much like an overture from a current musical, rather than with Mozart operas a lot of times, because Mozart was kind of bad about writing the overtures. And the overture is that first piece, the orchestra's piece, before any singers have come on stage, the theater goes dark, and then you hear this music. And with Mozart, or Beethoven to a certain extent, but definitely Mozart, he would go, oh man, the opera's opening tomorrow, I need to write something. And he would just write a piece. It wouldn't necessarily be related to the opera. When you get to Beethoven, he actually, for his one big opera, Fidelio, he wrote 4 overtures. And I guess in this case, 4th one's the charm, because the first 3 he rejected, but they did at least have music from the opera in them. So the overture to Die Fledermaus is kind of like a synopsis of the play, of the story. So it opens with a very fanfare kind of music. Then it goes into one of the arias, which is played, the themes, the vocal line is played by the oboe. Then we get into a waltz from one of the party scenes. Then it goes to other characters and other parts of the story. We get back to the waltz sort of one more time in the party scene, the waltzing. And then there's like a very difficult, very challenging section of music. It's very fast and sort of in the tradition of operas where all the action builds up very frenetically and then the music sweeps you off the stage. We have an ending. So pretty much if you listen to this overture, you've heard the story. but you still stay for a couple of more hours and watch the operetta. So this would be the overture to Die Fledermaus, written by our Waltzing King friend, Johann Strauss Jr.
Gosh, I just can't get over the oboe parts in that piece. They really stick out to me. I mean, I'm sitting right there, so I get to listen in from behind. That was a really great performance.
I know, and all those fast notes and the violins at the end. So
No
fun.
pressure. No pressure.
Yeah.
Well, that brings us to the end of our program. I want to thank Marguerite and Molly and Nadine, as always, my virtual friends. Can't wait to see you again and be playing real music with you folks again. Thank you, everyone who's tuned in. Happy
Happy New Year.
2021.
Happy New Year!
Hi, Kitty. Happy 2021, Kitty.
Sorry.
Cheers!
And actually, I do need to point out that this podcast is a little shorter than most because we all have parties to go to. Some virtual.
Exactly.
Cheers.
Here now.
Cheers.
Cheers! Happy New
healthy
Year!
New Year.
Happy New Year.